Level 1. The Associate. Low level. You are 17. No one comes looking for you. You go looking for them. You grow up on Atwells Avenue in Federal Hill, Providence, Rhode Island. The neighborhood the old-timers still call the Hill. Every Sunday, the street smells of garlic and espresso and cigarette smoke drifting from social clubs whose doors are always half open and never fully explained. Your father presses shirts at a laundry on De Pasquale Avenue and comes home smelling of steam. He works 6 days a week. He is never not tired. The men who sit outside the Roma Club do not press shirts. They sit in the shade with their coffees and their conversations that stop when strangers walk past. They drive clean American cars. They wear good shoes on a Tuesday for no visible reason. You have watched them for years and understood, in the wordless way boys in this neighborhood understand things, exactly what they represent. At 17, you approach a man named Leo Basso, who runs errands for one of the family's capos. You stand in front of him on a Wednesday morning and tell him you want to work. Not a speech, 3 sentences. Leo looks at you the way a contractor looks at lumber, for load-bearing potential. He tells you to be at the Roma Club at 7 the following morning. You are there at 6:40. Your first job is simple. You stand at the corner of Atwells and Spruce every Tuesday and Thursday from 2 until 6, and you watch the street. A car parked too long. A face that appears twice. A van without plates. At 6 o'clock, you walk to a barber shop on Bradford Street and tell the man behind the counter what you saw. He listens. He says nothing. You leave. You receive $25. You do not ask what the information is used for. Questions here are not refused. They are remembered. A man who asks too many questions is thinking about too many things, and men who think about too many things become problems. You stop asking questions. You start watching more carefully. Level 2. The Associate. Trusted Earner. You are 21. 4 years in, and nothing has changed on paper. You hold no rank. You carry no title. In the formal structure of La Cosa Nostra, an associate is not a member of the family, not an official part of anything. Associates are the outermost layer, useful, replaceable, and entirely unprotected if something goes wrong. What has changed is everything else. Leo Basso asks for you specifically now. When a situation calls for someone reliable and uninteresting to law enforcement, someone whose name is not yet in any federal file, your name is the one that comes up. In a world where trust is the scarcest resource and reliability is the rarest form of it, you have accumulated both without making noise. You now run a collection route 3 days a week across Federal Hill, 7 stops, a produce wholesaler, 2 lunch counters, a dry cleaning business, a numbers parlor, a restaurant supply operation, and a bookmaker working out of a phone booth he has somehow arranged to use exclusively. Each pays a fixed weekly amount. You collect it. You do not explain the arrangement. Everyone in these rooms understands it without explanation. The money goes to a man named Fredo, who counts it in a back office and sends it upward through channels deliberately invisible to you. You understand why. The less you can describe under oath, the less useful you are to a prosecutor. One Thursday, the bookmaker is short. His week was bad. He'll have the rest by Saturday. He says this to the wall because he can't hold your gaze. You tell him Saturday is fine. You tell Fredo within the hour. Fredo tells Leo. Leo makes the decision about what Saturday costs. That decision is not yours. It will never be yours at this level. You are trusted but bounded, and understanding the boundary is the entire job. At 21, the boundary is starting to feel like a cage. You want a door. Level 3. The Soldier. Made Man. You are 26. The ceremony takes place on a Thursday night in October at a house in Johnston, Rhode Island, in a basement room with no windows and 11 men. To become a soldier, a made man, a formally inducted member of La Cosa Nostra, you must be of full Italian descent. This requirement, embedded in the structure that Salvatore Maranzano formalized in 1931 after his victory in the Castellamarese War, bound blood to oath. Men with family rooted in the old country had something beyond themselves to lose, a web of obligation that extended omertà outward into bloodline. The Patriarca family of New England, operating under the commission that Lucky Luciano established after Maranzano's murder in September 1931, maintained this requirement without exception. The books have been open since 1976, reopened after being suspended in the wake of the 1957 Appalachian meeting in upstate New York, where the accidental exposure of dozens of bosses to law enforcement forced all families to freeze inductions for nearly 2 decades. Your name was put forward by Leo Basso. The capos voted. The boss approved. In the basement, a candle burns on a white cloth. A senior member cuts your trigger finger. A card bearing the image of a saint is placed into your bleeding palm and set alight. You hold the flame as it burns down without flinching. You repeat the oath. Omertà, loyalty. One way in, one way out. Everyone present already knows what the second way is. You are now a soldier, a soldato, a made man. A made man is, by the code of La Cosa Nostra, untouchable. No member of any family may harm him without first obtaining permission from his boss. This protection is real. It is also the clearest measure of what you surrendered in exchange for it. You belong to the family now, completely. You stop thinking about doors. You start thinking about stairs. Before we go further, if you've made it this far, comment what you want next. Hit that like button right now and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We upload every single day. Level 4. The Acting Capo. You are 32. Leo Basso is indicted on a Tuesday in March. Federal charges, loan sharking, and obstruction of justice. The kind of case that takes 2 years to try and ends in a result nobody wants to predict. Leo's lawyer is expensive and precise. Leo will likely survive it. But surviving takes time, and the crew cannot run itself. The family's underboss, a thin and methodical man named Marco Ferretti, who manages Providence's day-to-day operations with the unhurried discipline of a man who has never panicked once, calls you to a meeting at a restaurant on Atwell's on a Wednesday afternoon. The table in the back. No food is ordered. He tells you that you will serve as acting capo for Leo's crew until Leo's situation resolves. Acting capo. The seat belongs to Leo. You are keeping it warm. This distinction governs every decision you will make. A man who performs the role of capo while behaving as though it is permanently his is not demonstrating capability. He is demonstrating ambition. And unsanctioned ambition in this structure ends careers in ways that are not described politely. You manage Leo's crew for 23 months. You maintain collection routes. You oversee a loan sharking book covering 11 clients. You mediate a dispute between 2 soldiers over a bookmaking territory on the east side of the hill, a dispute with real potential for violence, through 4 conversations over 6 weeks, arriving at a division both men accept. You send tribute upward every week without exception. You bring nothing to Marco that you could have resolved yourself. When Leo Basso is acquitted and walks out of the Providence Federal Courthouse on a gray November afternoon, you are waiting outside. You tell him his crew is intact. You tell him it is good to have him back. He says Marco has noticed. You already knew. Level 5. The Capo regime. You are 37. A capo, from the Italian capo regime, or capodecina, meaning head of a crew of 10, commands a crew of soldiers and associates, and is responsible for what they earn, what they do, and what they do wrong. The rank was codified by Salvatore Maranzano in 1931 as part of the 5 families reorganization following the Castellamarese War, the 2-year conflict between his faction and Joe Masseria's that ran from February 1930 until Masseria's murder on April 15, 1931. The structure Maranzano formalized: boss, underboss, consigliere, capos, soldiers, associates, became the operational template for every American mafia family, including the Patriarca organization. You are now a capo, not Leo's seat warmed, yours. You command 15 men across Federal Hill and the Elmwood neighborhood south of downtown. Loan sharking, 2 numbers operations, a bookmaking network through 4 locations, a labor arrangement with a construction union local where 2 soldiers hold elected office, and a stolen goods network moving merchandise through a warehouse on Allens Avenue near the port. Tribute goes to the administration every week. The percentage is fixed and has been fixed for decades. No capo in the history of the American Mafia has successfully renegotiated it. You do not attempt this. Running 15 men is not what you imagined when you were imagining it. What you imagined was authority. What you have is accountability. A soldier with a drinking problem whose roots are slipping. A collection dispute with a client who has a lawyer cousin and knows it. 2 men in your crew with a personal history that bleeds into their professional one. Each problem arrives at your level before it can rise above it. One afternoon, a soldier named Caruso stops showing up on time. Then stops showing up. He has been gambling, deeply, expensively, at an operation run by a crew in a different family. The debt is growing. The other family is patient, because patient is how they collect interest. You summon Caruso. You speak once, briefly, without theater. His earnings are garnished until the debt clears. His responsibilities reduce until his head clears. You do not punish him further. A broken soldier is not an asset. He is a liability. He thanks you afterward. You do not receive it as a compliment. You receive it as an obligation you now carry. Level 6. The consigliere. You are 45. The boss of the New England family is a man named Don Angelo Ruggiero, 71 years old, who has run the organization from a modest office on Atwells Avenue for 17 years with the deliberate patience of a man who measured time differently. Angelo did not move quickly on anything. He had watched quick men destroy themselves his entire life. He moved when he was certain. He calls you to his office on a Monday morning in May and tells you he wants you to serve as consigliere. The consigliere, counselor in Italian, is the advisor to the boss, a position outside the direct chain of command that shapes everything inside it. In the hierarchy that Maranzano established in 1931 and that Joseph Valachi described in precise detail during his 1963 testimony before the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, the first time a sitting La Cosa Nostra member described the structure publicly under oath. The consigliere holds no crew, manages no territory, issues no orders. He advises, he mediates, he reads situations others read too quickly. You give up your crew, your soldiers pass to another capo, your loan book transfers, 8 years of built infrastructure, gone. In return, you sit in every significant meeting. You are consulted before every significant decision. Information flows to you horizontally, across the entire family, rather than vertically through one crew. Your first test comes 3 weeks in. 2 capos dispute a trucking contract running through the Port of Providence. Enough money that neither man is inclined toward generosity. You spend 11 days meeting with each separately, mapping the actual interest beneath the stated position. By the time you bring them to the same table, the problem is already solved. The meeting exists to let both men believe they solved it themselves. 40 minutes, 2 handshakes. Angelo listens to your report and says nothing for a long time. Then, good. In 17 years of knowing Angelo Ruggiero, you have never heard him say more than that about anything that went right. Good, from this man, is the highest available rating. Level 7. The underboss. You are 51. Marco Ferretti is diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in January. He continues for 8 months with controlled discipline before Angelo acknowledges what both of them already know. In September, Angelo calls you to the office. He is looking at his desk when you arrive. He looks up. He tells you that you are now underboss. The underboss, sottocapo in Italian, is the second in command. The consigliere advises. The underboss manages. He directly oversees all capos, resolves problems between crew level and administration, and ensures that what the boss decides is what actually happens. He insulates the boss from daily friction so that the boss can think in months and years rather than hours and problems. You now oversee 9 crews across Rhode Island and 3 in the Connecticut reach of the family's territory. Every capo's problem that cannot be resolved at the capo level rises to you. Every intercrew dispute, every federal probe that grazes the organization, every discipline matter beyond a captain's authority. 6 weeks in, a federal wiretap operation surfaces on the Hill. 2 of your crews are inside the government's radius. You learn about it through a contact inside the Providence Police Department the family has maintained for 9 years. You spend 8 weeks repositioning the affected crews. Different meeting locations, different communication patterns, new intermediaries between men whose names federal agents might already know. When you brief Angelo, you brief him on the solution, not the problem. He nods once. By winter, you are certain that one of your 9 Providence capos has been feeding information to a federal task force. You are not certain which one. You cannot move on suspicion alone. Removing the wrong man means destroying a loyal soldier, and that is a mistake you cannot recover from. You gather information slowly, watching what surfaces in federal activity after controlling what different people know. The answer comes in spring. It costs something you do not speak about afterward. Level 8. The Acting Boss. You are 57. Don Angelo Ruggiero is indicted in April on 19 federal counts under the Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, the RICO statute passed by Congress in 1970, designed to allow prosecutors to charge criminal enterprises as unified organizations rather than pursuing individual crimes in isolation. Before RICO, the government had to connect a boss directly to a specific criminal act. After RICO, the structure itself could be charged. The law permanently reshaped organized crime prosecution, most devastatingly in the 1985 Mafia Commission trial, which used RICO to simultaneously convict the bosses of all 5 New York families. Angelo is 74. His defense is thorough. The outcome is not something either of you discusses directly. He calls you the evening the indictment is unsealed and tells you simply that you will serve as acting boss while his case is pending. In the documented practice of every major La Cosa Nostra family through the 20th century, the underboss is first in line for this role. When the boss is incapacitated or imprisoned, you are now running the family. The weight arrives immediately. Not figuratively, physically, in the first week, in the way men who have known you for 30 years adjust when you enter a room. A formality they did not extend before. A distance you did not invite. Power at this level generates its own atmosphere, and you are inside it entirely. FBI surveillance intensifies within days. You move with a caution that governs everything. Where you eat, who you speak to, how long you remain anywhere. Decisions travel outward through multiple degrees of separation before becoming visible actions. You become a deliberate ghost responsible for everything. Angelo is convicted on 12 counts. He is sentenced to 16 years. He is 75 years old. You sit in the second row of the courtroom and watch a man who spent a lifetime protecting the organization receive a sentence both of you understand is permanent. He does not look at you as he is escorted out. This is his final act of operational discipline. Your presence is already in the federal record. His gaze would add to it. You walk out into a Providence afternoon. You are the boss now. Level 9. The Boss, Don. You are 62. The Commission formally recognizes your position at a meeting in Connecticut attended by 7 people whose combined federal surveillance files run to thousands of pages. Nothing is written. You are the Don, the capo familia, the boss. The position you spent 4.5 decades moving toward is now yours. And within the first month, you understand it is almost nothing like what you imagined when you were 17, watching men drink coffee outside the Roma Club. The boss is the most operationally insulated member of the family. By structural necessity, you are further from what the family actually does on the street than at any point since you were a low-level associate on Atwell's Avenue. The insulation protects you legally. It also separates you from accurate information. Every report that reaches you has passed through multiple minds, filtered by each, shaped by what each person believed you needed to know. The family's reality arrives already interpreted. You make permanent decisions inside a version of events that is not quite reality. Your phone is a liability, managed carefully. Meetings happen in moving cars, private rooms, restaurants where ambient noise defeats directional microphones. You become a man who is effectively nowhere while being responsible for everything. One evening, you drive past the laundry on De Pasquale Avenue, where your father pressed shirts for 31 years. The lights are off. The building is a wine bar now. You drive past without stopping. You think about your father counting change on a kitchen table. You think about what you were trying to get away from. You are not sure, anymore, that you got away from it. You think you may have built a larger version of it and called it power. Level 10. The Boss of Bosses. You are 68. The title, Capo di tutti capi, Boss of all bosses, has a documented and fatal history in the American Mafia. It was formally claimed only once in the post-reorganization era by Salvatore Maranzano in the spring of 1931, following his victory in the Castellamarese War. Maranzano declared himself boss of all bosses at a meeting in Wappingers Falls, New York, reorganized the New York gangs into the 5 families, and was murdered in his office at 230 Park Avenue in Manhattan on September 10, 1931, 5 months into his reign, by men sent by Lucky Luciano. Luciano abolished the title immediately and created the commission in its place, a council of bosses with equal standing, designed to prevent any single man from accumulating the authority that made him a target worth removing. The title has not been formally held since that afternoon. But the commission's structure does not eliminate the fact of hierarchy. It distributes it. And distributed hierarchy still produces, over time, an informal apex, a man whose judgment carries more weight than a vote, whose consultation other bosses seek before they seek anyone else's. You have become that man. After 6 years as boss, after navigating sustained federal pressure that would have collapsed a less careful organization, after resolving 2 interfamily disputes involving territory on the New England-New York border in ways that left both sides satisfied enough to last, you are the man other bosses call before calling the commission. Not because you demanded it, because you were right enough times that other powerful men trust your read of a situation over their own first instinct. Carlo Gambino of New York was never formally given the Boss of Bosses title after Luciano abolished it. But from 1963 until his death in 1976, no significant decision in American organized crime moved without his awareness. He held it through the same accumulation: survival, sound judgment, and the respect that comes from outlasting the men who came before. You understand now what that accumulation costs. The commission table has fewer chairs than when you first sat at it. You know the name that belonged to each empty one: federal prosecution, illness, or the particular finality this life keeps in reserve for men who reach too high too quickly. You are the oldest man at the table. You built something. You protected it. You outlasted 4 federal investigations, 2 internal crises, and 51 years of a life that offered no exits. And sitting here, at the summit of the only world you ever wanted, you understand something that could only be seen from exactly this height. You did not get to the top. You are what is left after everyone else was gone. In this life, there has never been a difference.